Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton, and there is one other game on Sunday. That would be the AFC Championship game. The Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Cincinnati Bengals for the second time, or second year in a row, I should say. And here to talk about that and the Kansas City Chiefs in general, Mr. Kansas City, and the only man to outduel Patrick Mahomes in suits for an entire season, Mr. Darren Smith. What's going on, man?
What's going on, man? Trust me, that it was much harder than it looked. So I can tell you that now. But the one good thing is, I only had to go up against him when we were on the road. He didn't dress in suits at the home game. So
Hey, there we
probably
go.
it probably saved him some embarrassment because I was fully loaded, cocked and loaded this season.
Said he wasn't ready, right?
Nah, he knew. He knew after a while. He knew what time it was.
Got you. So yeah, man, it's just man, I bet that was some interesting notes being compared and things like that, right?
Well, I mean, look, I mean, we had the conversation I think in the preseason. Um, they've been. I've been fortunate enough to have a suit sponsor for the last, I guess this is third or 3 or 4 years, and I think ever since the Chiefs made the run, 4 years since they made the run to the Super Bowl. So, um, he's been for. I'm fortunate enough to have a guy that wanted to, style me or be my suit guy or whatever. And I ain't gonna lie, I couldn't, I mean, I can't say, it's hard to say no to free suits. So, you know, I'm sitting there
Right.
looking at all these suits on my couch right here that I got to pick and choose from to take to Phoenix in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will tell you is even though it be maybe February out there, still kind of prepare as if as if you're going into some hot weather.
Yeah, oh, trust me, I got it on my phone. I got the temperature stuff. I'm definitely going to make sure it's temperature appropriated, for my outfits.
Gotcha. So I guess let's get into some football talk and the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, one game away from the Super Bowl. So did you expect this team to show up all season the way they've shown up all season?
Yes, I mean I'd like to really add more to it, but when you see him on a daily basis, see him in the games, talk to him in the locker room, anything less than the AFC Championship game would be viewed as a disappointment, and for most of them, if not all of them, anything less than hoisting up the Lombardi after their first taste in 2019 is a failure for them. So, I always felt that they would get here. The road and how they got here probably didn't expect that because myself, and my coach, we actually probably thought that they might have been on the road for the first time in Patrick's career, but when the dominoes kind of fell in the manner in which they did, and the Chiefs ended up being 14-3, we knew that there was a 95% chance that they would be here at this point where we are right now.
Now, I got to ask you, what has been one of the most surprising things that's happened this season for this team?
I think some of the close games that they had against teams that they probably should have, blown out. I would imagine the Denver Broncos, the first game out in Denver, and then I think the following week they faced off against the Houston Texans. I think those were two games that for me, caught me off guard on how close those games were. And it's not really a thing of, well, it's the NFL any given Sunday, and the other teams get played as well. My biggest thing has always been if you know that you're the more talented squad, you should be able to dominate and you should be able to display that on the field. And so there were more times than not closer games than I had expected, especially when you see how the season started off 44-21 against the Cardinals. And then next thing you know, you got close games kind of the rest of the way. And then I think the two biggest surprises in wins would have been the Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football, along with the 49ers in the mid-afternoon game back in October. That kind of really threw me for a loop there.
Gotcha. Now, we're going to talk about a recent game against an AFC South opponent, which was the Jacksonville Jaguars. Of course, that game, 27-20, I believe, is the final score there. Now, I have to ask, I mean, that team I mean, they actually exceeded expectations a little bit more than what people thought they would do. So, kind of, what were your thoughts going about the Jaguars going into the game, and what were your thoughts like after the game about the Jaguars?
Well, I had a lot of respect for the Jaguars. I actually felt that they were going to beat the Chargers. Yeah, I didn't have any doubt about that. Again, the road that they traveled and beating them in the second half, I didn't expect that. But I thought that they were a well coached team. I mean, how they played against the Chiefs the first time around was I think Kansas City beat them 27-20 by the same score. Or not, yeah, either 27-20 or 27-17. But anyway, they had they had surprised me just by how much grit. Now, the biggest surprise I think coming out of that game was the fact that when Patrick got hurt last week, that they didn't really blitz or really try to get after him too much after that, which for me was kind of surprising. You would think to try to give yourself a chance to uh, perhaps cause Patrick to have a turnover or something in that game and get a chance to maybe try to tie or win the game. So that really threw me for a loop. But other than that, I mean, it didn't. There was really not too many surprises coming out of that game. I thought Doug Peterson did a good job, but I do think that the team overachieved. I mean, they were able to win the division last game of the season, and they were in playoff mode for essentially 3 straight weeks. So I thought that the fight that they showed, for me, the biggest question I had of the Chiefs was making sure that they matched the intensity of the Jaguars coming into that ball
I hear you there. I hear you there. Now, of course, you know, the Chiefs have a young linebacking duo,
game.
and they have been playing well, in my opinion. I mean, but can you just kind of talk about those two guys in the middle? And of course, Willie Gay is one of the guys from Mississippi State, and then the other gentleman's from Missouri, correct?
Yeah. Well, Willie Gay actually had a quiet game against the Jaguars. He didn't register any stats in that game. But Nick Bolton, he is a beast. And I mean, Gay is athletic. I mean, he kind of jumps out at you when you see him in the locker room. The first thing you notice is his traps, his shoulders, and stuff. And like, oh man, guy about that life. And so, I will say, when it when it comes to Willie Gay, the thing I learned about him is that he doesn't watch sports. He doesn't watch sports. He doesn't watch football. I mean, he literally only watches the film of the team that they're playing that week. But if he's sitting at home, he doesn't watch football. He'll play games or something. But yeah, he is not a sports guy. That's something that really threw me for a loop that I got to know about him this season, and I really couldn't believe it. Like really, and yeah, he doesn't watch sports, so that was surprising for him. And Bolden, I mean, Bolden is just he's a sponge. He's someone that even as a rookie last year, Spags put a lot on his plate, and he just soaked it all up, man, and went out there and has been doing a hell of a job.
I hear you there. I hear you there. Now, he's probably going to be the next guy in line to probably get paid for that defense. Probably correct.
Well, I mean, he's got another couple of years on that rookie contract, so trust me when I tell you, players like that, they're not worried about getting paid. They worried about game for Sunday because they know it. For them to get paid, you need to show up and play in the big games. And so I think, and especially with what happened last year, it left a bad taste in their mouth. So they're more, players like him, even though they got years to go on their contract, that's not what their biggest concern is.
Okay. Now, another guy that's a young guy for the Kansas City Chiefs is Isaiah Pacheco, the rookie,
Yeah.
Rutgers. Now, he had 12 carries, 95 yards. How impressive has he been this season, in your opinion?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Well, because your audience doesn't know, I mean, I do cover the team and get a chance to see him every day at practice and doing training camp. I thought after they drafted him and seeing him in practice, I was like, he's gonna be starting. Me and my coach, we thought he'd probably be starting by maybe towards the end of the season. We didn't see him start, I think, game four, game five of the season and really never coming out of the starting lineup. So, I mean, the fact that he came on to the scene, kind of exploded on the scene, we knew during the preseason, we, see him talk to him and he get those reps. It's like I saw a younger thinner version of Kareem Hunt, but someone who ran just as fast and just as hard as him. That given the opportunity, like just like I mentioned about Nick Bolton, he became a sponge, learning all that he could and all that he can to try to one, stay on the field and be able to play with Pat. But the Chiefs, to their credit, they do a good job of drafting young players, drafting rookies, and bringing in first year players and mixing them in during training camp and during preseason with the veterans. So when you get to a situation like we are right now, they're no longer considered veterans, and so the bright lights won't bother them, so to speak.
Gotcha. Okay. Now with his emergence, I mean, what does this mean for Clyde Edwards-Helaire? I mean, he's kind of disappeared. I mean, no one talks about him.
Well, I mean, he's been injured. I think he's just been take off the injured reserve this week. Now I don't know whether or not he'll get activated to play Sunday, but um, I really couldn't say. I mean, he may or may not be on the team. It depends on how the season ends and whether or not they. I mean, he's still on the contract for another 2 years. So, I mean, you still have his rights. So if you feel like you can get something for him, cool. Otherwise, he'll just be in the rotation along with the other running backs.
I hear you there. Now we do have to move on from the Jaguars and get to the main event. The Cincinnati Bengals again coming to town. Joe Burrow and the boys coming to town. Now, first thing we have to talk about, of course, and you've already addressed it on social media a few times, Mr. Patrick Mahomes and the health of Mr. Patrick Mahomes. How is he looking? How do you think he's looking so far, or have you seen him?
Yeah, I've seen him. He looks fine. We talked to him the last couple of days, some in practice. I mean, he's fine unless he has some sort of setback between now and Sunday. He'll be good to go. He'll be ready to go.
Now, another guy I want to talk about, McCole Hardman. Now, he didn't play last game. I
He
don't
hadn't
know.
played since week 9, so
Yeah, definitely. Is it or any chance that he's going to be on the field this game or no?
there's a chance that he will be on the active roster. If he is, I expect him to get a few snaps, but I wouldn't expect you know him starting or being in the rotation for real. I mean, he might see. I know a lot of fans would like to see he and Kadarius Tony out there on the field together, which is a possibility. But it's really up to McCole and how healthy he feels and whether or not he's good to go. If he's able to go at full speed, then yeah, I could see where he would get some reps. But they're not going to rush him back in because he hasn't played since week 9. So I mean, you've got tons of other players that you can utilize before you get to McCole Hardman.
Gotcha. I figured I would ask because, I definitely enjoy watching his electrifying speed out there.
Yeah.
At times he does do some things that make you scratch your head.
Well,
But other times,
I mean, if they can use them as a decoy, I mean, that would be fine as well. But I mean, you really don't. I mean, but if you put them out on the field to a natural, to a normal fan, if you're out there on the field, they think you're 100%, so they expect you to perform. So
right, that's true. That's true. Now, there's lots of talk, of course, about Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes. And, of course, they're both playing good at quarterback. But to me, the biggest person in this game is Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, 20 carries, 105 yards, and a touchdown last week versus the Bills. Last year versus Kansas City, 21 carries, 88 yards. How concerned are you about Joe Mixon going into this game?
Oh, I'm always concerned in general for the running game because you can control the clock and keep Patrick on the sideline, Patrick and his office on the sideline. So even talking with Steve Spagnuolo Thursday at our presser, that was one of the things that he talked about is making sure that they can, try to stop the run as best as they can, especially when you got a two-headed monster with Perrine and Mixon. So, and look, if you remember the last game, both teams ran for over 100 yards in that game in Cincinnati. So, that's going to be the key. Is plugging a hole in that, and that's where it's going to be key for Nick Bolton and Willie Gay. Making sure that they, if they do try to run the football, that they're able to get to the ball quickly and keep them from getting too many positive yards. You don't want to get to be, 2nd and 4, 2nd and 2, or 3rd and 2, or something like that. You want to try to keep them in that 2nd and 3rd and long position.
Definitely. Now, we do have to talk about the Cincinnati defense. Of course, no one really talks about them. They always talk about the offense and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and all these different weapons. But the defense has been doing a few things. Eli Apple has definitely, stirred up a few things as well. But, definitely the Cincinnati defense has got some things done. What's the biggest thing that concerns you about their defense going into this one?
I don't really have a concern. It's just more so and the schemes that they play because they do change it up a lot. I can't remember if it was in Cincinnati or here, and I think it was here in the AFC Divisional Game last year where they would drop 8 in the coverage, and so that really kind of threw Patrick and the coaching staff off. Now, how much whether that they did. I don't think they did a whole lot of in-game adjustments in the second half, and we saw what we saw last year. But but their defense is to be respected. I mean, they get after the quarterback. Jesse Bates and I mean DJ Reed. A lot of these players, they can get after the ball and they get after the ball fast. They got a lot of speed, and to me, that's generally a good thing on the defense. If you got some speed, then you can get after the ball. You can get to the ball quickly, and so. And then I think, if I remember correctly, I think they sacked Patrick a couple of times as well in that last game as well. So they were able to get around Orlando Brown, and I can't remember if the other sack was on Wiley or not. But yeah, I mean, so that's and knowing the situation with Patrick and his ankle, uh, they would be wise to try to go after Patrick and try to get a hit on him if they can, and obviously try to hit him low. So it's going to be a good chess match to see the protection hold up for Mahomes versus this front seven of the Cincinnati Bengals.
It's definitely going to be interesting, and I'm Eli Apple. I'll mention him again. Mm-hmm. Eli Apple has done a lot of talking after every game, and I get it because, of course, over his career he's been burned time and time again, but he's playing solid football, and I guess he feels like he's on his Kwame Brown stuff. I think that's what he kind of feels like. It kind of feels that way to me. But, but hey, it is what it is. And hey, we'll see what happens come Sunday. Of course, he's probably going to be matched up with, I was like, oh, he could be matched up with Valdez-Scantling, potentially. So we'll see what happens. Or Juju. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think more likely Juju, but hey, we'll see what happens. But, we'll see. It's going to be some interesting matchups for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you got a 3-game winning streak, you can do the talking. I mean, it's up to the other team to, pretty much shut you up. And considering that they won in Arrowhead last year, and then what they've done this season. I mean, until you beat them, because Patrick is 0-3 against them, they do have the right to talk. So I can't really complain because I'd be doing the same thing if I were them.
I hear you. Now we've reached the end of the show, but of course that's not the end of it. I do have 5 questions for you, and I've got a couple choices for you, and you got to make one decision. Are you ready?
Oh, sure.
All right. Let's see. Burrow or Mahomes? Who has more passing yards in this game, in your opinion?
Ooh, more passing yards would probably be Burrows, but yeah, I'd probably say Burrows.
All right. Now, as far as running backs, Pacheco or Mixon, which one do you think will have a more impact in the running game?
Pacheco.
All right. Now, here's a Super Bowl question for you. Okay. Eagles or 49ers, which team would you rather the Chiefs play?
Well, they've already beat 49ers, and they beat them handily at home, even with Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuels and others. I mean, I don't know. I mean, because they're both good defensively. I guess you could say the 49ers, but I'd like to see a Chiefs-Eagles matchup just to see because, I mean, the Chiefs beat them last year. Granted, they had everyone maybe outside of A.J. Brown, but, the Chiefs handled them pretty well at their place last year as well. So, I mean, I don't have a dog in the fight on that one. I mean, I take the best team win, but I think the Chiefs would, fare well against either one of them.
All right. Oh, let's see. Chris Jones, over or under 2 sacks against that badly injured Cincinnati Bengals offensive line.
I think it'll be under, but that's just because he hasn't had a sack against him yet. And if they have multiple sacks, I think it'll come from Chris and other players.
All right. And last one, Juju or T. Higgins? Who has more receiving yards in this game?
That's a good one. Juju or T. Higgins? Just because I think he'll have more passing yards, I'm gonna say T. Higgins, because Patrick he has so many, he can throw to 10, 12 different players. I could see it being T. Higgins.
All right. All right. We're all wrapped up. And that is the end of the show. I want to thank you for coming on again, giving us key Kansas City insight and going into this AFC Championship game. If you can, tell everyone what you're working on, what you got going on, and where they can find you on social media.
Pretty much on social media, you can find me at Darren Smith WHB on Facebook, Twitter, and IG. I'll be doing the Chiefs pregame cheat sheet along with my co-host. We do that via social media from the game, so we'll be doing it from the press box. I think 4:00 Central this Sunday. We kick off being at 5:30, and then you can also watch you can watch our show online on Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube. And on Monday nights we do the Red Hour, which is basically a post game show the following day, the day following the Chiefs game. Online as well via social media, and then via Radio Row in Phoenix, Arizona. In a couple of weeks, whether the Chiefs win or lose, I hope they win. Obviously, to go down there and cover them in the Super Bowl.
There you have it. Well, thank you again for coming on, and thank you everyone for listening and tuning in to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out.